and I will moderate today's webinar. I'm also directing Mainstreaming Innovation Project. It is a joint project of 9 Scottish universities, and it is funded by Scottish Government. In the event of interruption of this webinar, either by fire alarm or disruption of online connections, please do try to reconnect. The webinar presentations will finish around 1:30, and then we will have around 30 minutes for questions and answers. However, you can start asking questions by using a chat facility from the start of the webinar, and these questions will be answered after the presentations. We plan to close our event around 2 o'clock. Before we start with presentations, I would just like to say a few words about our project, Mainstreaming Innovation. The project is focused on integration of low-carbon infrastructures in the built environment. And as you can see on this slide, we are looking into landscape and biodiversity as a resource, but also as an instrument for mitigation of climate change and adaptation to climate change. The links between different infrastructures, such as infrastructures for energy efficiency of buildings or energy generation from renewables, or low carbon transport, waste and water, and ICT or information communication technologies. These links indicate that we are looking into synergies between these different infrastructures, how they can be better integrated, and how we can achieve better efficiencies and reduce costs, for example. Today's webinar is about the expertise and research and practice in sustainable infrastructure at the University of Edinburgh, one of the project partners who can contribute with their expertise to the joint projects with Scottish businesses. The speakers are Dr. Kate Hill, of School of Geosciences, and also a representative on the Mainstreaming Innovation Steering Group, and Matthew Lawson of the Department of Social Responsibility and Sustainability at the University of Edinburgh. Welcome, Kate and Matthew, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation to talk about research and practice at the University of Edinburgh. And I would kindly ask you to start with your presentations.
Great. Thank you very much for the introduction, Branko. Matthew and I are very pleased to be here this afternoon to talk about our work and what's going on at Edinburgh University. As Branko said, I'm the Edinburgh University representative for Mainstreaming Innovation Steering Committee, and I'll be describing some examples of the types of research in sustainable infrastructure at the university. And then my colleague Matthew will be talking about more in practice some examples from the university's estate and examples of this. So to begin with, I'm just going to give some basic facts and figures about the university and outline some of the ways in which industry and other organisations can engage with it. So Edinburgh University was recently ranked in the top 20 universities worldwide in the university's QS rankings. It's a very large university. We have about 30,000 undergraduate students. Most of our research is conducted by our academic staff and postgraduate students, both taught master's students and research students, and that can also provide an opportunity in terms of companies trialling out projects or ideas through master's student projects or PhD projects. The university has a large amount of research funding, typically about £200 million a year from a variety of sources, and this can provide opportunities for collaboration on research council funded projects or other sources of funding. The research management is done mainly through an organisation called Edinburgh Research and Innovation, or ERI, and I've put the website here so you can find out more information about them. And this organisation supports specifically interactions between academic research and industry. So just to give an example of the types of things that it does, it works with staff and companies to set up license agreements, and also help set up new companies based in the university. So that's just a bit of background to the university as a whole. And as I said, I'm now going to spend about 20 or 30 minutes giving an idea of the range of research expertise in the university and some case studies which might provide you with ideas for collaboration. And then Matthew's going to talk about more practical experience and implementing sustainable infrastructure in the university's estate. And then there's time for questions at the end. The University of Edinburgh is structured around colleges and then schools within that, and there is a lot of research going on sustainable infrastructure across the university, which is based in different schools. And so how I've structured the case studies which I'll present is using the mainstreaming innovation rainbow of activities, using the colour coding shown here. And with each case study there's some sort of contact details, and you can always ask questions or make contact later on. So I'm going to start off with the first theme, which is landscape and biodiversity, and highlight some research that I'm doing based in the School of Geosciences. And this is looking at sustainable urban drainage systems, and in particular using wetlands and ponds to help manage runoff in urban areas in order to reduce flooding problems and to improve water quality. And sustainable urban drainage is now required in all new developments in Scotland above a certain size, so it really is becoming mainstream now. But we're still learning about the best ways of implementing and managing it, because it is quite a departure from the traditional drainage systems that many people are used to working with. My particular work in this field is looking at sediment build-up and contamination within wetlands and ponds within these new drainage systems. And an example of this is some work that I've done on the Dunfermline East expansion site, working with the housing developer there, Taylor Woodrow. And this site includes wetlands such as the one on the left here, and within these systems I've been mapping sediment build-up to construct diagrams on the right here. So this is a plan view of an urban drainage pond. It shows the sediment depth in the blue colours. The darker the colour, the greater the sediment depth. So what we can see here is that in 2003, 4 years after this pond was constructed, we have about 0.5 metre depth of sediment accumulation within parts of the pond. And based on these estimates, you can predict how frequently the sediment will need removing from the pond, in this case about every 30 years. And by analysing the sediment from the pond, we can assess its contamination content. And what this research has shown is that sediments in ponds like these, which drain housing developments, is relatively uncontaminated and can be used in composting. It doesn't need to go to landfill, whereas sediment from more contaminated sites such as industrial parks or lorry parks might need to be considered for landfilling. So this research is very much about improving how we manage these sustainable drainage systems. The next example I'm going to highlight, also under the same theme of landscape and biodiversity, is rather different, and this is work conducted through the School of Architecture and Landscape Architecture in the university, led by Dr. John Brennan, who's a practicing architect as well as a researcher. And John designed the whole life house, which is shown here. It was built for Scotland's Housing Expo 2011, and what's a particular feature of this house, as well as having very sustainable measures, is that it has a flexible annex, as shown on the right here. So on the right is the flexible annex, where the configuration can be used for residential purposes, but it can also be used as a business space. And John has also been extending the whole life house in an adaptable neighbourhoods project being conducted in Douglas in southwest Scotland, which takes the whole life house concept that we saw on the previous slide and adapts that for multiple housing in a larger scale. And the aim of this type of project is to create flexible land use which is suitable for economic regeneration, so the use can be flexible between housing and business use. Moving on to the second theme of mainstreaming innovation, the energy efficiency of buildings. The example here again is by Dr. John Brennan in the new Suburbia project, and this is focusing on the private housing sector and designing and building prototypes of very low energy consumption housing. So the picture shows a test building which was constructed in East Lothian, east of Scotland, and this house is built to very high environmental standards, so it has extremely good air tightness and insulation. It has full heat recovery. You can see the solar panels on the roof for electricity generation, and this house is currently being monitored to examine the energy use of it, but also importantly to examine the comfort of it for the inhabitants and also their behaviour. And this has been recognised through award of a Scottish Home Awards this year and a prize for sustainable construction. So John's work is very much about putting sustainable architecture into practice. The next mainstreaming innovation theme is localising energy and decarbonising heat. And the project that I've highlighted here is being led by Professor Jeanette Webb in the School of Social and Political Science, the Institute of Governance within that school. And the project is joint between the University of Edinburgh and the University of Strathclyde, and funded by the UK Research Councils. The project name is Heat and the City, and it focuses on an often neglected area of UK low carbon energy policy. And the figures on this are quite startling. For example, about 50% of energy use in the UK is for heating. This accounts for around a third of the UK's greenhouse gas emissions. And currently in the UK, we waste as much heat as we use to heat our buildings and water. So increased energy use efficiency and reduction of waste is a very important way in which the UK can reduce its greenhouse gas emissions, but also realise savings in resources and costs. So this project, Heat in the City, is examining the contribution of community heating networks to realising this ambition and combining that with energy saving improvements. So a bit more about the project. What is it actually doing? The project has two stages. The first one is looking at what has worked in terms of community heating networks, and this has involved examining practice across municipal authorities in the UK, but also looking at comparators in similar Northern European environments, particularly Bergen in Norway and Rotterdam in the Netherlands. So this stage has been involved holding interviews and meetings, not just with public and community authorities, but also with legal and financial and engineering experts to examine all aspects of the feasibility of these projects. In stage 2, the project is examining in detail a number of case studies across Scotland, as shown here, and this involves very much looking at how these projects work on the ground and interviewing participants and residents in the projects. The findings so far from Heat in the City indicate that municipal authorities are the key to low carbon heating in Europe. In the UK, about a quarter of the local authorities, that's over 400 local authorities, are planning and investing in energy developments such as these. Many of these networks are very small. About 3/4 of them connect on average about 35 properties. 15% of these networks use combined heat and power, but this is much more common among the larger networks. So that's just an indication of some of the findings so far from the project, and I've put here the web address for the project so you can find out more. Moving on to energy generation from renewables, the case study I've chosen to highlight is from the Institute for Energy Systems at the School of Engineering, and that is work conducted by the group of Professor Gareth Harrison, and this is examining the life cycle of energy infrastructure. Gareth's group have looked at different scales of energy infrastructure, applying life cycle analyses to those. For example, large-scale electricity transmission systems. The example I'm showing here is application of life cycle analysis to microgeneration technologies such as micro wind, photovoltaics, micro combined heat and power. One of the concerns with implementing microgeneration technologies is that they may not be so effective as at larger scales because the economies of scale aren't realised. However, the work conducted by Gareth has shown that this is not the case. The particular project here was conducting a life cycle audit for a small rooftop mounted micro wind turbine, which is shown on the image here. It's manufactured by an Edinburgh-based company called Renewable Devices. And the life cycle analysis showed that for even small-scale renewables such as this, that there were substantial improvements in the life cycle carbon dioxide emissions, both compared to traditional fossil fuel generation, and also the emissions compared very favourably to large wind turbines. So overall, scaling down renewable energy infrastructure to these small scales did still realise substantial improvements. Moving on to the theme of ICT for energy management and decentralised distribution, I'm highlighting here a project led by Dr. Nigel Goddard in the School of Informatics. The project is called IDEAL, which stands for Intelligent Domestic Energy Advice Loop. It's funded by the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. And a distinctive feature of this project is that it is multidisciplinary. It brings together computer scientists, building engineers and sociologists from Edinburgh University, from Heriot Watt University in Edinburgh, from non-governmental organisations and from industry. And the project is focusing on how energy technologies interact with householder behaviours. And this addresses a really important area in reducing energy demand from existing dwellings, in that there are many public advice campaigns about how to reduce energy usage. There are many technologies to help with that, but actually realising these benefits only happens if we take account of and work with householder behaviours. So what this project involves is instrumenting about 600 homes in Edinburgh and Milton Keynes in England with wireless sensors to examine energy usage. And the data generated from these sensors is then analysed using artificial intelligence and other complex data analysis methods, and then personalised advice is fed to the householders based on their energy usage. For example, the advice might be, last week you spent £10 on hot water for showers. Did you know that if you reduced your average shower time from 10 minutes to 8 minutes, then you could save £100 per year in your energy bills? So it's these types of advice that is going to be fed to the householders in the project, and then the effectiveness of this advice in influencing behaviour is going to be examined. So to find out more about the project, the website for it's here, so you can follow its progress. Moving on from energy usage to the mainstreaming innovation topic on waste, I'm highlighting here a project that I'm working on, which is rather different. It's looking at how we use a waste material to obtain value from it, and also to solve other environmental problems. The material that this project's focusing on is iron ochre, and iron ochre is shown in the left-hand image. It's the bright red iron-rich material which we're examining, and it's produced by treating iron-rich waters from abandoned coal mines, particularly in the UK. In the UK, an organisation called the Coal Authority is responsible for this, and it manages about 30 to 40 mine water treatment plants across the UK, which generate about 30,000 tonnes of iron ochre precipitate a year. So quite a large amount of precipitate to dispose of. However, the iron in the ochre is a very strong adsorber of phosphorus in water. And phosphorus is one of the contaminating elements that water companies want to remove from sewage water. So this project puts the two ideas together, and it's working with Scottish Water and Northumbrian Water in using iron ochre, considered a waste by the Coal Authority, to strip phosphorus out of sewage, and that's a pilot scale plant filter system shown in the central image. And not only does this have benefits for the water companies in helping them to meet environmental quality standards, but the phosphorus that is removed by the ochre can then be recycled to agricultural land as a sustainable slow release fertiliser. And we've shown through greenhouse experiments and small scale field plot studies, which are shown in the image at the right, that the phosphorus removed by the ochre can then be made available to plants, and that reduces phosphorus fertiliser inputs and has no damaging effects on soil quality or on crop growth or crop quality. So at the moment with this project, we've demonstrated that the concept works at the small field plot scale, and we're looking for opportunities to scale it up. Another example relevant to the waste theme is work also being conducted in the School of Engineering, led by Dr. Blanca Antizar Ladislau, and Blanca's group is examining using waste biomass to generate biomethane, and the way in which it works is shown by the loop diagram on the left hand side, and you probably can't read it because the font's rather small, but it starts off with carbon dioxide being fixed by algae. Then algae is collected and it's mixed with food and paper waste to generate methane. They're digested together in anaerobic digestion facilities, which are being installed across the UK water industry. The image on the right of the slide shows one of these facilities in Scotland at Deerdykes. So the benefits of this process is that methane is produced from waste materials, so methane can be used for energy production, but also the digestate that's produced by the process is very nutrient rich and can be used as a fertiliser. So this scheme is one in which waste materials which formerly went to landfill, such as food waste, can be used to generate methane and provide useful fertilisers. Another area in which Blanca's group works is in water treatment through the Sustainable Environmental Engineering and Development group, and this work involves using nanomaterials, combining them with sustainable low-cost treatment technologies which are particularly suitable for developing countries to provide high standard drinking water for households. And the particular nanoparticles that the group are working with include titanium dioxide, and coating ceramic water purifiers with a nanoparticle mixture which improves the treatment capacity of these materials in reducing bacteria content and also reducing the content of heavy metals with drinking water. And Blanca's been working with a number of NGOs and also being funded by the Engineering Physical Sciences Research Council to work on this project. I'm just going to finish up this section about research within Edinburgh University by highlighting the Edinburgh Centre for Carbon Innovation. And this is a joint initiative between the three universities based in Edinburgh: Edinburgh University, Edinburgh Napier University and Heriot-Watt University, with funding from Scottish Government and from Europe. ECCI was set up about 3 years ago. It's just moved into some new premises in central Edinburgh, a refurbished historic old building which is also being extended. It has 3 main functions which are shown here. The first one is enterprise and innovation, supporting businesses to develop low carbon products and services, and partnering with a number of organisations like NHS, Transport Scotland, Scottish Enterprise, the Royal Bank of Scotland. The centre has specialist business managers who I'll show the contact details for later on. As well as this, the centre delivers executive training and innovation under its skills and learning theme, and so far it's delivered this to over 1,000 delegates in the UK, but also through programmes in China and in India. The centre also acts as a policy interface between research and business and government, and it manages something called Climate Exchange, which provides independent expert advice to the Scottish Government about climate change mitigation and adaptation measures. So far, ECCI has had 3,000 visitors in 3 years, and it supported approximately 100 businesses and networks to create new low carbon projects, products and services. And I'll give an example of one of these later on. Coming up in the next year or so for ECCI is the opening of their new innovation suite and the new building at High School Yards. And this suite will be open to a number of organisations, including startups, corporates, SMEs, voluntary organisations who can work alongside and attend events at the centre. What's also coming up is the Smart Cities Project Accelerator, in which ECCI will be a mediator for new projects. I've just got a case study to illustrate how ECCI's activities work, and this is SEEN, the Sustainable Community Energy Network, which started off by 3 students from Edinburgh University, and ECCI was able to offer SEEN advice, office space and critical funding to help them get off the ground. But probably most importantly, ECCI was able to help SEEN make connections with enterprises and funders. So now ECCI produces very well respected reports on community energy in the UK, and they've created SEEN Connect, a comprehensive database of community renewable energy projects, and the web link is here so that you can find out more about it. So I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Matthew Lawson to talk about putting this into practice in the university. Before I do that, I'll just show the contact details of the ECCI Business Innovation team. So their details will be there in the slides so that you can make contact with them. So I'll hand over to Matthew.
Thank you very much, Kate. Delighted to be invited along to this Mainstreaming Innovation webinar today to share with you a selection of case studies that highlight how the University of Edinburgh has developed its sustainable infrastructure over these last few years. So let me provide you with an overview of the presentation. So I'm going to provide you with a bit of background to sustainability at the University of Edinburgh as we are developing a holistic approach towards tackling sustainability issues. I will then highlight a number of case studies that our colleagues at Estates Operations, along with ourselves, have worked on, and they touch upon district heating, sustainable landscaping, working with laboratories and technical staff, low carbon travel and resource management. And going through these case studies, I will highlight how these have reduced our carbon emissions as a university and also provided financial savings, but also support staff and students to adopt sustainable and low carbon behaviours and enhance the knowledge of the university community. First of all though, just to give you some background, the university adopted its social responsibility and sustainability strategy in 2010, setting out a number of priorities within the university's teaching and learning framework, its research framework, its knowledge exchange framework and its estates operations. And since then the university has been on a journey to develop a holistic approach to sustainability. And it doesn't regard sustainability as just an estates operation. Many universities and colleges throughout the UK and also in an international context feel that sustainability is better dealt with within the estates operations. However, we have taken it out of estates operations and have established a new department. So actually this year, the University of Edinburgh was very pleased to announce the launch of the Department for Social Responsibility and Sustainability. Over the summer we appointed its first ever director, Dave Gorman, previously with SEPA, as its first director. So it's not just about, as many people say, the green stuff over there, the operational element. It touches upon the teaching and learning framework, how we can actually embed sustainability within the curriculum, and also establish communities of best practice for staff and students, touching upon transport, energy, waste and procurement as well. So the department will have responsibility for leading on the social responsibility and sustainability strategy at the university, and also its climate action plan. And one of the targets within the climate action plan is to reduce our emissions by 29% by 2020 using a 2007 baseline. We are there to support staff and students through a number of means, and we do this predominantly through face-to-face engagement. Yes, we do use emails and posters, but we prefer the face-to-face engagement method to establish that two-way dialogue, that conversation, so you're getting feedback from staff and students, and you can also pass on information as well. So that includes activities such as arranging workshops, arranging volunteering opportunities for our students, running the Edinburgh Sustainability Awards, a scheme that encourages departments to make everyday actions more sustainable, and also producing guidance. On our website we now have a guide called the Be Sustainable Guide, so staff and students, if they have any inquiries about sustainability while they're at the university, they can go into this online device. The university has also been recognised for its approach towards developing sustainable infrastructure on campus for a number of years, and I thought I would just highlight some of the schemes that has recognised the great work going on at the university. The Gateway process developed by our estates operations colleagues for building projects has ensured that the university consistently achieves BREEAM standards for its sustainable buildings. We now have a policy in place where we want to achieve very good to excellent to outstanding BREEAM standards for all of our new projects. And just recently, the Edinburgh Centre for Carbon Innovation, that Kate highlighted a moment ago, received an outstanding BREEAM accreditation, one of the highest you can actually get, and that was with working with colleagues within the ECCI, but also our colleagues within estates. The Scottish Centre for Regenerative Medicine, SCRIM as it's commonly known, is a new building that has recently opened at the university, and it won an award at the SLab conference down at Liverpool this year for the best new laboratory building, recognising sustainable design, safety measures put in place, and also resource efficiency within the building design itself. The university's sustainable infrastructure supporting low carbon behaviours has been consistently recognised by the People and Planet Green League on an annual basis. The Green League assesses the ethical and environmental performance of universities across the UK. The University of Edinburgh has achieved over the past 3 years a 2-1 mark and also a first class award, which are the two highest awards you can get under that scheme. So in summary, Edinburgh is developing a holistic approach towards tackling sustainability issues, something that is quite unique in the education sector, and has been recognised for its efforts in relation to sustainable infrastructure. So the first case study I'd like to go into a bit more detail about is the University of Edinburgh's district heating networks and combined heat and power plants. The university has prioritised and invested in developing district heating on 4 campus locations through the use of combined heat and power facilities. From 2003, the university started the process of replacing ageing steam systems with high efficiency boilers and spark ignition gas engines, and this has been going on for over 10 years now at the university. The reason behind introducing this technology to the university was compared to the previous ageing steam boiler system. These new systems have an 85% efficiency rate as it captures the byproduct heat when generating electricity. So I'm just going to go into a bit more detail with 4 of the CHP facilities we have at the university. And I'll just start off with the first one that was established in 2003 at Pollock Halls. So in 2003, the university installed a 526 kilowatt gas engine to operate as a lead boiler serving the Pollock halls of residence, and that is where the majority of our first year undergraduate students stay. Indeed, we now have over 3,000 first year students staying in several buildings in that campus location. Already in place, there were 2 megawatt dual fuel shell and tube boilers, the dual fuel being natural gas and light oil, and they continue to serve and provide top-up and standby heating capacity. And since installation, the Pollock Hall system has cut annual CO2 emissions by 500 tonnes and reduced noise nuisance in an adjacent conference building as well. The £1 million project was funded in part through a £250,000 grant from the Community Energy Programme, managed at the time by the Energy Saving Trust and the Carbon Trust. And I'm very pleased to say that as it's located in our main halls of residence, we've used this facility to tour students around so they can get a raised level of awareness about what is heating and powering their own campus. The next CHP facility that we installed at the university was in our King's Building campus, and that campus is the home to the College of Science and Engineering. And it replaced a 45-year-old steam heating plant and distribution network in 2004. When selecting a replacement system for this, a number of options were considered. However, installing a new CHP and piping system was the option with the lowest whole life cost. And this is something that we consider through all of our choices when it comes to procurement and also estates operation development. And it's something that I would encourage other colleagues from various sectors to think about as well. 4 boilers were stripped out and a new 2.7 megawatt gas engine and 2 7 megawatt thermal low temperature hot water boilers were installed. A highly insulated low temperature distribution system was also installed in the existing ductwork. All the steel piping used was insulated with mineral fibre insulation and sealed in a flexible cover. Serving over 30 buildings, this £4.3 million project saved over 2,600 tonnes of CO2 equivalent emissions in its first year alone and continues to do so. And it has continued to make financial gains as well. And at the time, I should just say the King's Building CHP project was the largest energy efficiency upgrade in the UK university sector at the time of installation. And it's been great to see the CHP in work. Our KB campus has expanded now, so this KB CHP plant now serves over 40 buildings. So the capacity was built in from the start to expand the network of district heating. The third CHP facility replaced a 50-year-old steam boiler system with a tri-generational system to heat and cool the George Square campus, and that's our main campus in the centre of Edinburgh, where our College of Humanities and Social Sciences is based. In 2005, we installed a 1.6 megawatt gas-fired CHP engine, and there's a picture of my colleague David Somerville there next to that very engine. We also installed 2 6 megawatt and 1 3 megawatt low temperature hot water boilers, along with a 600 kilowatt absorption chiller, and that was exploiting the byproduct heat to cool the campus during the summer months. And this £7 million project was contributed towards £500,000 worth of annual savings. And that was a very intense period of estates operations development for the university. And it was not until recently in 2013 that we added a 4th CHP facility to the university. And this is down at our Holyrood campus, where our School of Education is based. A 1.41 megawatt CHP engine has been installed and will be providing heat not just to that School of Education, but also to the Pleasance Student Union building as well. Some of you might remember that location as one of the hubs for the Edinburgh Fringe Festival that takes place in Edinburgh during August. A second engine is planned to be installed within the next 2 years at that site to support further student accommodation that the university is going to be building. We are also planning to connect that district heating network to the one we currently have in George Square, so again focusing on providing better energy security for the university. So in summary, the CHP facilities at the university, along with the district heating networks, has had numerous benefits. The CHP facilities, the 3 original CHP facilities, meet 80% of power needs on 3 campuses. The 4 CHP facilities contribute towards 1/3 of the university's total energy needs. There's annual savings, both carbon and financial, on the slide there, and the initial £12 million investment in the 3 original CHP facilities has already been paid off. And the most surprising thing, I think, one of the best things about having the CHP facilities at the university is that they have become a teaching and learning facility themselves. Over 500 students have toured around the CHP facilities, and that has increased to an improved awareness of our staff and students about how their own campus is powered and heated. The next case study I just wish to share with you is one on sustainable landscaping. There's a growing importance attached to this at the University of Edinburgh because we do have a growing estate, so it's vital we incorporate sustainability into landscape management for encouraging biodiversity and making maintenance manageable as well. So in the middle there's a photograph of our Easter Bush campus, which is home to our veterinary medicine school. And our landscape section introduced natural drainage methods to this site because there's a big issue with flooding down there, and our sustainability team worked with our landscaping unit to again use natural sustainable techniques. Local plants and fertilisers were also used on that site, and they contributed towards encouraging the biodiversity of the area. I should just say the use of chemicals has been reduced significantly, and there'll be very few used by our landscaping team because they prefer natural methods to weeding and also encouraging growth of plantation as well. The picture of the right, it doesn't look that glamorous on the eye, but that is one area, and I'd say it's our most active area when it comes to biodiversity on the campus in King's buildings. And it's by using natural species of plant that John Turpin, who leads our landscape section, has managed to introduce biodiversity to that area. We're also using a lot more green roofs and green walls at our campus sites. And the picture on the left-hand side there is the use of a green roof at our Easter Bush campus. So again, contributing towards biodiversity, but also the insulation of the building as well. 2 further things to note in relation to sustainable landscaping at the university. We have our own allotment site at the university, which is run by a group of staff and students who wish to learn more about gardening and also producing local produce as well. We have also an apiary in Pollock Halls. We have 2 beehives to encourage the local biodiversity, and we have the aim of producing a wee batch of honey eventually, but we've already hosted workshops for staff and students so they can understand themselves about the importance that bees have on our plant life and also local biodiversity as well. So I'm just going to move on now to go into a bit more detail about the Scottish Centre for Regenerative Medicine, that, as I noted earlier, won an award at the SLab conference for the new laboratory building. So there is a growing need at the university to retrofit existing labs and incorporate sustainable design features in new buildings for efficiency. The £54 million project for the Scrim building, and it's a picture of the centre there on the right hand side, opened in 2012 and is a prime example of how a new lab building has embedded sustainability features, and they're really at the core of the building. The building itself won an excellent BREEAM award, and this reflects a number of sustainable features included within the design. First of all, it maximises space by including inbuilt storage for chemicals and equipment, and have designed standard lab spaces for flexibility in the future. And this is one thing that many colleagues within the sector have had an issue with. Labs that were built in the 70s and 80s are very hard and very expensive to change. So when you have a standard lab size, you can change that for future use if the experiments and also use of the building changes over time. There has been an extensive utilisation of light wells within the building. There's a prime example in that photograph to bring natural daylight deep into the building. Other technologies that have been used include rainwater harvesting, ground source heat pumps for heating and cooling as well. But one point I really want to stress here is that during this project, through the design and the building phase, we had academic input. So the building users themselves were asked what you'd like to see in this building, and they discussed this with the leading architects. But throughout the design and also the building stage, if the architects had any queries about adding new equipment or fancy features, the academics had a representative on the building committee, and they could say, no, we don't need those, or we'd like to see more standard labs within the building. And that, I think, is key to including efficient and sustainable design features within buildings. And we're doing that a lot more now at the university. I'd like to just touch upon our sustainable infrastructure that supports low carbon behaviours. We recently conducted a travel survey of our staff and students this year, and we found that 88% of staff and students use a low carbon form of transport to and from work, and that included walking, cycling, and also using public transport. And focusing on cycling for a moment, we have worked with the Edinburgh City Council to establish a quality bike corridor between our George Square campus and our King's Buildings campus, making a very safe route for cyclists, both staff and students, to get to and from either campus. We also provide secure storage for staff and students, so when they're going into lectures, their workplace, they know that they've put their bike somewhere that has security and is not easily nicked. We also provide shower facilities at all of our sites to encourage people cycling as well. And in addition to this, we've actually put on a host of doctor bike sessions. So if students or staff have a query or would like an MOT done of their bike, they can bring them along at lunchtime workshops with trained mechanics. Focusing now on public transport, there's a number of shuttle bus routes that we've established and worked with Lothian buses to provide to our staff and students. We have a free bus service between our George Square campus and our King's Building campus, and we also have shuttle buses to our Little France campus, and we've arranged discounts to and from our Easter Boost campus as well. Again, trying to encourage staff and students to use a lower kind of carbon transport, and we're providing the means for them to do that. And we have included financial incentives as well for our staff. There's cycle to work schemes, and if staff wish to purchase a seasonal card for rail travel or bus travel, they can do so, and our transport office helps them do that. So again, we are putting in the infrastructure in place so our staff and students can actually take up low carbon travel options. And now moving on to resource management, which is increasingly becoming a very important issue at the university. We have a number of targets at the university, and these include: we wish to increase our recycling rate by 3% on an annual basis. At the same time, we want to reduce our waste to landfill by 3% on an annual basis, and we wish to send no biodegradable waste to landfill by 2020. And I have to say the university is making great progress on this. During 2011 and 12, we recycled 78% of general waste, and we reused around 2,000 items, equating to 44 tonnes of materials. And we've done this through a number of ways. First of all, we're rolling out a new recycling system at the university. So we are getting rid of under-desk individual bins, and staff and students will have to use shared bins within their departments. And these bins have information on them that tells users what goes where, And even though this is a very simple thing, it helps with reducing the contamination rates within those streams. We also have the awards framework within place, and that's the Edinburgh Sustainability Awards. So those departments who take part go through a number of criteria, and those criteria focus on everyday actions that departments can implement. And a lot of the criteria focus on resource management and procurement. So again, we're providing the framework and the advice for departments to go that extra bit further. And I just want to highlight the Shrub Student Cooperative, a fantastic initiative that was supported by the university. Over the past 4 years, students, including the People and Planet Student Society, along with Accommodation Services and ourselves, have hosted a free shop during Freshers Week, where students can come along and pick up items for their flat, including kitchen items, books, clothing, free of charge. And all these items come from students who are leaving their halls the previous year. So we take all those items, we store them during the summer months, we go through them, and then we actually offer them free to the new freshers that come to the university. And over 30 tonnes of potential material going to landfill has instead been given out to students over the past 4 years. A fantastic initiative. And I'm very pleased to say that with the university support, this initiative has a permanent home now at Guthrie Street in Edinburgh, and it's called the Shrub Student Cooperative. So this is a year-round initiative to again encourage reuse of items, and it hosts workshops for students and staff about repairing materials, and they've got a fantastic workshop coming up about how to make cardboard furniture as well. So again, they're being a bit edgy, and they are providing these opportunities for staff and students to learn more and also learn new skills at the same time. And I touched upon it just a moment ago, but here are our new posters that go in every one of the shared bins, clearly stating what items go into what bin, following national guidelines, but these were developed alongside focus groups that we ran with staff and students. So they're what staff and students are wanting, making it very clear, and these are going to be rolled out across the university over this next year. So looking forward, I've talked a lot about what the university has done, but what are we hoping for going forward? Well, as I said, we're hoping to connect the district heating networks at the university. The first kind of example of this will be between our Holyrood campus and our George Square networks. We're also looking in dialogue with Edinburgh City Council and other companies and institutions in Edinburgh about connecting their buildings to our district heating network. And following on from that, I think collaboration with local organisations, there's so much potential there in terms of sharing our knowledge and expertise within the university, but also for the university to learn from local organisations about what they're using as well. We have recently had a fantastic kind of knowledge exchange workshop with Edinburgh Leisure, looking at the methods they use to engage with their staff, but also the technologies they use to promote sustainability within their buildings. Also utilising research expertise. One of the main functions of our new department within the university is to bring academics and estates operational staff together. We've got some world-renowned researchers at the university, and we should be using their expertise for our estates operations. And we've already started that process, and I see a lot of potential for that going forward. And lastly, our estates operations, our buildings, our technologies we use, they should not just be there as estates operational items, but they should be used as teaching and learning facilities. We have provided tours to students in our CHP plants, and we'll continue to do so. And a lot of students are coming to our office to ask to do the research on the facilities and infrastructure that the university has in place. So again, a lot of potential there, and other universities are having a similar experience as well. So I hope that was beneficial to you all, to give you a bit of an overview of how the university embeds sustainability within their estate operations and their buildings, both in terms of engaging with their staff and students as well. And I'll just hand over to Kate.
So just to conclude, you've got questions afterwards, but if anyone wants to find out more after the webinar, then here are the contact details for Matthew and myself. So if there's any queries about the case studies that I've outlined, then please send me an email after the webinar, and I'm sure Matthew will be very happy to receive any contacts about working with the university estate, with potentially using that to trial out projects or to share experiences. So yeah, thank you very much, Blanca, for inviting us.
Thank you very much, Kate and Matthew. And we now have time for questions related to your presentations. And we already have the first one from one of our online viewers, from Stuart Taylor of Artel Associates. Well, it is related to BREEAM. We were talking here about sustainable infrastructures and sustainable buildings and so on. And he's asking a question, probably disappointed with what is going on right now, because he said, should the coalition scrap BREEAM? The government have scrapped it in their schools program. How is this good for sustainability, by example? Do we need assessment tools for sustainable buildings? What do you think? How useful they are? What do we learn by using them?
I think from my experience and with working with the State's colleagues, it definitely is helpful to have that framework. And they place a lot of weight within the BREEAM kind of model now. And as I said, the university has a target of getting very good up to excellent and outstanding in all of its new projects. And actually the BREEAM framework has helped universities' operations in developing better systems, better monitoring systems as well. So from my own experience, it's definitely helpful.
Yes. Thank you. We'll wait for other questions, but I have prepared a few for you as well. For example, Kate, I wanted to ask you, what do you see as opportunities, for example, regarding funding programs for collaboration between academia and industry? What is your experience? What funding programs have been used for different projects to really bring industry and researchers together to work together on different projects?
There are lots of different funding sources available. From my own experience, I've found that a stepwise approach works well, starting off with small projects, small amounts of funding, and then building upon that. For example, the case study I outlined of work in using iron ochre from mine water treatment for moving phosphorus from sewage and recycling, that started off initially by an approach to the Coal Authority, who provided a small amount of funding for a pilot study, and then based on the result of that pilot study we were able to put together a larger proposal to the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council in collaboration with water companies. And so there are sort of routes through research council schemes, though they are quite competitive and difficult to access. I've also got personal experience with the Scottish Funding Council Innovation vouchers, which are specifically targeted at linking researchers with SMEs, and that was a very straightforward process, and SMEs can give contributions in kind to that, so that's a very cost-effective approach. So overall, in summary, there's no one magic pathway for finding funding, but there are a number of opportunities there from sort of public and private sector and government funding. So I would say it's worth starting off small to begin with, and then build on that and seeking larger sums of money.
Okay, thank you. Question for you, Matthew, related to the procurement of low carbon technologies and capabilities of Scottish industry. For these projects that you have described, were there enough companies, Scottish companies, who were able to deliver? Are there opportunities then to engage more, to develop their skills? What is your experience?
Well, I think there definitely are. I think there's a number of opportunities to engage with them going forward. First of all, we have the Edinburgh Centre for Carbon Innovation that engages with SMEs and other organisations. So again, we can use communication methods through them. We also have the Edinburgh Research and Innovation Centre, which produces a number of companies and supports startup companies that are involved in low carbon technology. So again, we have that link into them. But also I think Scottish companies have the opportunity to learn from some of our other suppliers, our international suppliers, especially with district heating. So I think, yeah, there's a number of opportunities, but also opportunities for Scottish companies to learn as well.
Okay. Here is a comment from John Stubbs of SAP Service UK. We would agree there needs to be some kind of assessment for buildings, for sustainability of buildings. But he is also asking a question for you, Kate. How is sediment removed from ponds? Is it quite a large process from suds? How is it removed?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends on good design of the suds pond. So in many of the early pond designs, they were one or two big basins, and from those types of systems, sediment removal can be quite a big process with dredging required, and that can cause a lot of disruption, disturbance to the pond ecosystem. And so to avoid that, how the suds should be best designed is that not much sediment should get to the pond in the first place. So the pond should be sitting at the end of a treatment train. So upstream there may be grass filter strips or detention basins in which most of the sediment is trapped, and from which it is much easier to remove in a dry situation rather than in the bottom of the pond. So with good design, sediment removal from ponds shouldn't be a large process.
Okay, thank you very much. Obviously, suds are important for mitigation of climate change and adaptation, looking into potential changes in climate, larger precipitation. So, have they been developed quite a lot recently in Scotland, or do you see other plans for further development of suds in different settlements across Scotland?
Yes. Now in Scotland, suds are very much mainstream, and they are required for all new developments larger than, is it like a few households. So now suds are expected to be seen in most new developments, and they have become very much standard practice in Scotland. And Scotland's actually leading the way in the UK in suds implementation and maintenance, with Scottish Water taking responsibility for suds draining residential developments which meet certain standards. In England and Wales, there's currently consultation going on about how to mainstream suds, particularly the maintenance of suds, and in the next year it's very likely that suds approval boards will be established within local authorities who will oversee the implementation of well-designed and well-maintained suds, with a process for maintaining them and funding available for that. So they are very much becoming mainstream in the UK. Other countries such as Australia and Sweden, sustainable drainage has been mainstream for longer. In Australia, they're very much used within water sensitive urban design, and are seen within the context of very much conserving water and reusing water from suds for irrigation because of the much drier climate in Australia. So I think that they're definitely here to stay.
Okay. Question for you, Matthew, related to combined heat and power. Obviously, University of Edinburgh has had now 4 projects, and what could you say about how disruptive were they, how everything was organized?
Well, I mean, one example I gave there was the second project down at King's Buildings, where we looked to minimise disruption, so we used the existing ductwork for the district heating project. And our CHP facility at George Square, we located it behind the George Square campus itself to again reduce minimal disruption. So we do try and reduce the amount of disruption, but during installation, especially when it comes to district heating networks, there's going to be definitely some amount of disruption. And this was true when we were putting in our district heating facility down at the Holyrood campus just now.
What are the benefits of connecting these combined heated power systems?
I think there's a number of benefits. One is about increasing capacity of the district heating networks. Secondly, it's the opportunity to connect them to other buildings and institutes within Edinburgh itself, which I think there's great potential. And I think number 3, it's about energy security as well, which is increasingly becoming an important element of designing and actually developing DCHP and district heating networks.
Before we continue with my question, here is also a question again from John Stubbs of SAP Services. Is case study info available on the SAT's development in Dunfermline?
Yes, it's featured on the Syria website. If you go to the Syria CIRIA, the Construction Industry Research Information Association, they've got a very comprehensive website about SUDS. It's now very much within green infrastructure, and there's lots of case studies on there, including the Dunfermline one.
Thank you. Well, looking into low carbon travel, information that 88% of students and staff at University of Edinburgh use low carbon travel means is really impressive. But does it tell us also how important it is to locate these institutions, teaching facilities, for example, in city centre, but also accommodation for students?
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's also about providing the infrastructure to our staff and students so they can actually use low carbon options.
Yes.
And that's why we've put in place the bike quality corridor. We've put in shuttle buses as well, working with Lothian buses to our campus locations. But I do think location, we're very fortunate that the majority of our university is within the city centre itself. However, I should say that our Easter Bush and Little France campuses that are outside the city centre, we do have car sharing schemes which have been very successful. Again, just providing some initiatives and some incentives for staff and students to get involved.
And how big is now the department that has been established this year?
Well, we're over 20 staff, and that's bringing staff who are formerly within estates and buildings, staff who are in procurement, and staff who are also involved within a staff and student project called Transition Edinburgh University. So it's early days as yet, but it's great that the university has actually established that department, reflecting the growing importance of sustainability to the university.
It is also important to inform everyone about the results, to monitor, but also to display the results of improvements of carbon savings.
Yeah.
Do you have a system within the university to do that?
We do indeed. We have a network of energy coordinators run by the Energy Office in our Estates and Buildings Department, and they receive monthly energy reports highlighting the gas and electricity usage within their building. That energy coordinator then engages with their fellow staff members. They communicate it out to their staff and students through email, through events, and in our informatics forum we have numerous screens, and that data is actually live data that we have on there. So that's one of a pilot project. We're hoping to roll that out to other buildings, but I think you're right, communication and actually letting people know how the university is performing is very important.
Yes. Okay. Well, we do not have any more questions, but we still have time, and perhaps you would like to conclude with some messages related to your presentation and some additional information maybe that you would like to provide, Kate, if you would
Yeah.
like to do that.
Yeah, one point I'd like to stress is that there's very good linkages, research linkages between social science and engineering and physical sciences research, and I'd like to stress that as being very important in making real changes and implementing sustainable infrastructure. It's very important to understand people's responses to the messages received about implementing and using sustainable infrastructure, and until we understand human behaviour, we're probably not going to be as effective as we could be in developing technical solutions. So I'd like to emphasise that link, and future research projects and collaborations, I think that's vital to consider the human behaviour dimension as well.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Any something you would like to say, Matthew?
I think from the university's kind of viewpoint is we are very committed to providing the infrastructure. We're very committed to putting that in place for our staff and students so they can actually use and actually carry out sustainable behaviours. However, the infrastructure in place also has to be about teaching and learning. We're a university. We have thousands of students and also staff members at the university, and there's no point, in my personal opinion, having these facilities and then not taking advantage of them as a teaching and learning resource. So I think if other universities and colleges actually use these as a teaching and learning resource, I think our students will be more knowledgeable, and also that's better for tackling kind of global challenges such as climate change and sustainability.
Okay. Of our online viewers to some forthcoming events and webinars. We have organized a series of webinars and events about funding for low carbon infrastructures, European, British and Scottish funding programs. And on the 7th of November, we will have a live event at the Lighthouse on localized energy generation and distribution, looking into funding, research and practice. We will have speakers from the Technology Strategy Board who will be talking about their forthcoming funding programs for low carbon infrastructures, but also speakers from CARES and Communities Energy Scotland talking about previous and future projects. And of course, we will have a few researchers from the universities who are partners in our project talking about their recent research projects. On Wednesday, 13th November, we will have a webinar on post-occupancy evaluation, looking into justification, case studies and practice, and the potential for future alignment with government soft landings. The speaker will be Howard Jeffrey of Skanska, who is also on advisory board of our project. And finally, on 18th of November, we will have a webinar on solar photovoltaics electricity generation within the Scottish education sector, looking into a case study for Edinburgh. The speaker will be Professor Tariq Munir, the expert in this area, and he's of Edinburgh Napier University. Please book places on our website for these webinars, and thank you very much for watching this webinar. Thank you. Thank you.